out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Tim.
Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everybody. Welcome.
To episode 79.
What if that was how this podcast went?
You mean like
just
we're
barfing
morning
DJs?
We could try.
Ugh.
But I don't think we should.
No, I don't either.
Anyway,
that was probably enough for everybody.
Let's just try the intro that way.
Okay.
This is episode 79 of Dismembering Horror, the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie,
and myself, Tim Aislinn,
we talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, and anything we found interesting or noteworthy about a horror film that we watched.
God, that is awful.
And this
hard to do, hard to listen to. It's funny, but it was a thing.
I could keep it going. Once I'm in the mode of anything that's kind of like makes you go insane, I kind of just fully embrace it. Like, you know, when you're
like this movie we watched.
Yeah. Or, you know, like when you're editing or doing sound effects, or like when you're doing sound design and like you're listening to like the same line on repeat or something.
Brutal.
I like just tune in. I tune out the insanity inducing.
Yeah.
So if we had to, I could.
I like that feeling when you kind of get in this weird, you know, you're just in this weird zone of, I don't know, it's almost hypnosis. But my biggest problem with it, and I mean in that sense, like if you're working on a project, a lot of time that happens with me if I'm working on like a song that I'm writing and I'm trying to lay it down or whatever, record certain parts of it. And, you know, 10 hours will go by and I won't have had any food or whatever. And I'll be like, holy shit. Like, that the day is over. I need to like actually eat and actually be a human.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with all of that up to that point. My problem is then when you put it down, especially if it's audio type stuff, you're just, for me, I'm just hearing the thing for the next 24 hours. So like you can't sleep because you're just, the song or whatever is in your head on like the worst part of it is just repeating. That's awful for me. You don't get that?
No, because I feel so fueled up from just like being plugged in and feeling like I made progress. Mm-hmm. I think I'm just in a good place. Bad stuff doesn't happen.
I mean, I think mentally I'm in a good place because I feel like I got shit done, but there's that part of my brain that just is replaying it. And I can't, and then it becomes like horrifying.
I don't know. As we said, this is episode 79 of Dismembering Horror. No, enough with that. And yeah, today, the film that we'll be talking about, the film that we watched, whether you watched it or not, we hope you did, but then we also hope you didn't. Maybe.
I almost just spit coffee all over the place.
No, we do this podcast in the spirit that basically where if you don't have a horror bud, a fellow horror fiend to watch and then digest a horror films with, well, we're here for you.
We're so here for you.
Yeah, we like to
wrap our big tentacles right around you.
Tim and I, yeah, sure. Tim and I are horror fans and filmmakers, and we found it a tackleable genre to get through. Like, we want to see what's out there.
Yeah. And
what better way to do it than guarantee you watch one once a week.
That's right.
And what better way to learn from it than to talk about what worked and did not work for us. We also take a subjective point of view. We encourage you and expect you to disagree.
Yeah.
And have fun either way, hopefully. All right. Well, so I don't think I've said it yet. It's The Devil's Doorway from 2018. It's what we watched.
I mean, some alliteration never hurt anybody.
The Devil's Doorway from 2018. You know, fun fact, Tim, this is the third episode that we've done that is a possessive to the entity of the devil. This is
really?
We've done The Devil's Doorway now. Then we had The Devil's Backbone. And then we've also had Satan's Slaves.
Very nice. That's true.
And
not to say that this isn't the only sort of satanic movie we've done, because we've got others.
Much more of those, yeah.
You know, would you put Paranormal Activity in. It's close, but not quite the same thing.
Yeah, because demons.
Right. It's a little more
Upside down crosses, like all that.
right.
Anyway, should we watch the trailer?
Yeah, we should.
All right, here it is from 2018. I believe it had its festival premiere, but premiered widely. 2019, The Devil's Doorway.
Hail Satan.
Look around you, John. Do you think God is here in this place? This place disgusts me. The people who run this place disgust me. Reverend Mother, would you like to comment about what's been going on?
There is evil in this place.
What's happening here?
This room is off limits, Father.
There's something going on in this house. Hello?
You are not prepared for this, Father Riley.
I've seen moving statues. I've seen water turned into wine. I've seen miracles, John. But that's not what's happening here.
Prepare yourself, Father.
God in heaven.
Well, Tim, next up, I should say, is our rating for the film. Per our rating system, would you tell yourself, Tim Aislinn, to avoid it, stream it, rent it, or buy it?
I thought you were going to say next up is our segment called Cliche Corner, where we talk about how this movie is just a big cliche. No. So I'm a stream. I don't think I'm an avoid because, like, it's okay. It's got, like, it's okay of a movie that I feel like you could kind of put on while you're doing stuff. And like it serves a purpose.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
You know, like it's not like, oh, I'm not like offended by it or like it's so unwatchable that it's like a waste of time. It doesn't feel like that to me.
Yeah. Same here. I guess overall look at movies as like, it's okay to just have on while doing something else because like, even for, I agree. It's I give it a stream it and kind of like a lower kind of whatever stream it. Like we've said, stream it to worse things, I think.
Right.
You know?
Oh yeah.
But this is aside the point, but just since you brought it up, like, I don't know, even for a film like this where if you're gonna get something out of it at all, like you better be pretty tuned into it for like
it's a fair point.
The eeriness and atmosphere to work. You know, like it'd only be that much forgettable or like why even bother if you weren't gonna give it your full attention.
Yeah.
I think of have it on movie as comfort food, you know, movies.
Right. Like I can put LA Confidential on.
Yeah.
And like I've seen it so many times that just having it on, I'm like, I know what's going on. Yeah, so maybe that's a wrong way of looking at it. Maybe it's more like if you want to put this on and sit there and contemplate your existence.
Or I don't know, if you're just, I think more a horror fan and you're like, cool, like priest stuff, devil stuff, possession stuff, found footage film. I want to see it.
Yeah, maybe it's more like you put it on right like at the end of a long day and you don't want to, it's like CSI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't want to think too hard.
Yeah, exactly.
But you do want to watch something and just sort of let it shower you or just feel like a glaze come over you.
We'll get into it, but there was enough working to just get you to at least be sitting up during it.
Yeah.
And to not totally tune out. So we'll get to that. Yeah. But how about the rating, or no, the summary?
Summary. Well, I mean, you could kind of just read the like little, what do you call the little titlings that come in on the trailer? It's like it's just telling you the story.
Yeah.
So two priests get called to go to what's called a Magdalene laundry in Ireland in 1960.
Yep. They're to investigate a miracle.
Right.
Of blood coming out of Virgin Mary statue eyes.
Right. And so a Magdalene laundry is a place back in the day, this is true, and not great, like the opposite of great, like horrible, where all sorts of women were sent because of various issues, whether it was
Issues like being pregnant without a husband.
right, like the issues being like Catholic Church issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, being pregnant or whatever, like if they were a sex worker or if they had some sort of mental mental disorder or issue going on that the society didn't want to deal with them,
And
so
they
just chucked them in these nunnery type places.
It is a literal laundry place. Like that's why it's called that. They're doing it's like
That's right. They're basically just there to be manual labor.
Yeah.
It's super fucked up.
Yeah.
It's essentially prison.
And it's there we have the mother superior leading the whole thing, who's this stern, intimidating nun, classic in that sense.
Also, it's prison for something that basically you had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
That's what's so fucked up about it.
Basically, we have Father Thomas is the older. I called him. He's the doubting Thomas type.
Oh, look at what you did there, Ryan.
And then the younger one, the cameraman, Father John, and they're on they're on the hunt to get the evidence, and stuff keeps happening as like the more blood from the statue eyes, the girl trapped downstairs.
Yeah, that's really where it sort of hits its
Ghosts
stride.
in the running around or something like that.
Yeah.
Possessed girl speaking Greek.
Yeah, and from sort of a story plot character point of view, like the story pretty much is that Father Thomas, he's the person who gets called to deal with quote unquote miracles.
Yeah.
And to essentially debunk them. Like, at least that's sort of his point of view. And so you have the young father who's a little more like, what would you call that? Wide-eyed and like, oh, miracles in God are great and how amazing.
He's open to it.
And you have and Thomas is very much jaded and cynical and basically says, there may be a God, but like this shit is bullshit.
And it worked because it came from a place where he was cynical with the actual Catholic Church too. Like he was basically like allowed us to key into it because he's basically like, look at this place.
Yeah, he's like, look, if there's a devil, it's us. It's humans because we do fucked up shit, which is actually, I think, a really cool kind of point of view.
Well, yeah,
And maybe because I agree with it.
I mean, I look at it as like there's inside of us all, there is God and the devil, and both of those are just sort of emblems or totems for things inside us all that exist in the universe.
Yeah. I mean, this is a little like just personal tangent, I guess, but like I've always had that feeling. I've always had that weirdness of when they use the totem or the entity, the outside thing to justify behavior, right? Like, oh, I did this nice thing because I'm a good Christian and God told me to do it, kind of thing, or vice versa, right? Like, oh, that person did an awful thing. It must have been the influence of the devil. And that way of framing it has always seemed very odd to me because I'm like, but they did it. You know what I mean? So I am super disconnected from that that way of looking at it.
I guess it's just, they're all just words because you can look at like, I can connect to the phrase, follow your heart, like do what you know, follow your intuition.
Well, what I'm saying is I think the literal translation that some people put out there is where I go, what? Wait, what? Right? Like you're speaking in more of like the metaphorical aspect of using that terminology, which I think is fine.
Yeah.
I get bogged down when people are a little overly literal and dogmatic about those types of things. I'm always like, I like it. My brain kind of just goes.
Well, yeah, because are you getting at that's when they do it in the sense of like that they're looking at it as very, very a separate thing from themselves.
Yeah.
And not, as I said, we have God and the devil in us in a certain way.
I kind of like your way of putting that. That makes me go, yeah, that's cool. All right.
Yeah. I've
makes more sense.
I've gone like full circle, kind of like being raised in the Catholic Church and going to like
were you really?
school
I
and all
forgot
that. Where like had to go full circle to like, hate everything that's hateable about them.
Yeah.
But then start to look at the stories and the words just as metaphors.
Totally.
And then like I get that, you know.
I think allegory is great.
Yeah.
Like teach that lesson, baby.
And eventually things get worse and worse, of course, and they end up in caves or whatever. And it's like all the nuns are evil, of course, or whatever. And kind of we get jump scares along the way of ooh, the nun's right in front of us, or the ghost kid is right in front of us, whatever. And then we get the hodgepodge of like...
Hodgepodge is the right word.
It's the things out of the exorcism, movie...
floating above the bed, like crosses turning upside down, things flying across the room, the girl chained to the bed, like all that shit is just it's
speaking in foreign tongues.
Exactly. It's like just fucking the hit list.
Anyway, we'll get into that more about how that's working and maybe not working, and a little of both. So should we do that? What worked?
I think we should.
All right. Devil's Doorway, what worked?
What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
I guess just to continue that same thought, like, or just use that as the jumping off point, like, it's what... all that stuff that's so stereotypical, it's like annoying how, many times we've seen it before. Mm-hmm. But if the film itself like had a verisimilitude that was
wow.
Which
now I'm gonna just say, for our listeners' sake, I'm sure all of you know what that means. I don't remember what that means.
Which you'll hear what I'm saying, and you'll know. Like, okay, like when a found footage movie, let's take Blair Witch Project, some of the Paranormal Activities, the realness to it, that lived in feel, like it's actually found footage you're watching. Mm-hmm. That's the sense of verisimilitude. I mean,
I get it. It's like versatile,
right? So where this one, as soon as you have like the opening scene where it's like, take a moment from the end because it's a jump scare and they're in the caves, put it at the beginning, then just like blanket it with the obvious scary music. And then throughout you blanket it with the obvious scary music. It just loses that sense of it's a found footage film entirely. It defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say it's the fact that it had these like common things in it, like with the exorcism subgenre, because just I haven't seen it, but there's another found footage exorcist film out there that's called like The Devil something else. I don't know. But anyway, it's the fact that like it would be cool to see those things done in a film that where you're like, when you're watching it, you're going, oh my God, this is real. Like I would be down to see like girl floating if I'm like fully buying into the reality of it, like the Blair Witch or whatever, or it's really teased and it doesn't also fall back on these, the other tropes of like the jump scare tropes. Yeah.
There's a movie called The Fourth Kind.
I have yet to see it. The alien stuff, I'm into it though.
Now, forget about it's got its own issues and sort of kind of in a different way of what you're saying, but where it breaks the found footage and it's a movie sort of stuff, but that's beside the point. The actual footage, this is footage from the case that they put on. It's not actual footage, but like what they call the actual footage in that movie is super effective. And like, I agree with what you're saying. That's a very hard thing to hone in on and get and make us go, oh fuck, but this is the actual footage. Right. And so, what's the thing that works?
I know, I was just going to say, I was sitting here realizing completely, I think for the first time, broke the format of the show and jumped ahead to like how the music wasn't working and that killed it. But I want to get, I guess the point being to get out of the way, because we don't have it for a section, the tropey things themselves about exorcism weren't not working in themselves. that's why I was choosing to put it now, which isn't as far as what worked.
Right.
Maybe that would have been a better thing of note.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
But no, okay, now I can transition to kind of though what. Okay, now we'll stay on what worked. How about that? like I'm supposed to do. Though that verisimilitude, I really appreciated where it was there and where it was working. You have like the correct 16 millimeter, film and aspect ratio, and what I was like looking for that just made me so happy was the quality of their dialogue sounding like it was from the 60s.
There was a moment where I realized that really stood out where Jonathan?
John's the younger one.
Yeah, John. Okay, so John, he's the guy filming everything. He's always sort of, well, for the most part, behind the camera, right? Because he's holding it and operating it and whatever. And he's also operating the sound. But there's a moment when Thomas is standing across the room, like next to one of the statues of Mary. And John puts the camera like maybe on a tripod or whatever, and then walks across the room, and the sound design of that and feeling like, oh, right, we're hearing this mic that Thomas has across the room. So his dialogue has been really clear and John's has been kind of muffled. And then as John walks across the room, you get that sense of the room based on the mic because it gets more clear and he's closer to the mic. And like, I sort of suddenly was like, this is the thing that makes found footage actually work, right? Mm-hmm. Like it makes it feel good because they're paying attention to that kind of detail. And there's sort of little things with like how the splicing of the film, because obviously it's on reels. So there are times in the movie when it's clearly the film is been sliced, but the sound is consistent because the sound is on a different track. Mm-hmm. So that's a very nuanced sort of thing. And maybe to a certain degree, not necessary, but they put it in because it adds sort of flavor and realism to the execution of the thing. Yeah, the verisimilitude. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and actual moments, yeah, agreed. And moments where it felt like you could only do it in the found footage movie with this kind of story that I think did have some cool artistry to it, or like kind of pushing for something interesting or cool. Like there were more examples, but the one I remember, maybe just a couple more examples, but the one I remember was where it was like a super long take that was just a shot of the tape reel playing back. Like that was a neat way. That was a really neat technique where I just really tuned into the moment.
I agree. I had weird sort of mixed feelings about it, but like just as a thing, like the feeling that it gives you was really effective. Mm-hmm. I kept thinking from a practical standpoint, I was like, did they fuck up and like they just they didn't have the budget for this footage, like to film a thing, so this is their solution to like just film an audio reel going and we listen to this conversation. But it's irrelevant whether or not that's true, right? Like, because the effect of us sitting there and watching the reel spin and listen to this conversation kind of forces us, it's a little hypnotic, and it also forces us to fucking really listen to the conversation.
Gives weight to what was being said.
And suddenly it was like, they did it twice for sure. Mm. They might have done it a third time. There's one time though that is a long, it's like a minute and a half conversation.
That's the one I'm remembering.
Yeah, and that, it was, it had quite an effect.
Yeah. And then just, it looked like it was actually shot on film, and just that even with, combined with the setting, had this, I thought, like really effective color palette and just feel to it. Yeah. It's just gray, dark. It just felt eerie.
Yeah. The setting really helps.
And the setting, yeah.
There is just old, dank, hospital-y, I don't know, what else would you call that? It's got kind of two things going on. It's got the hospital wings that are tiled and
Well, it's that it's
creepy.
even though it takes place in 1960, it feels like it could be 1760. Like that.
There's definitely
or that the place has been around since then.
It's got kind of both that hospital feel and also this like, God, how do you describe that? Mansion, like countryside mansion, like a manor. It feels like a manor.
Well, it reminds me of similarly to Hexen at the end, like the real life footage of where all the women are kept.
Yeah, totally.
Kept, God, Jesus.
I know. And Mary and Joseph.
Yeah, exactly. I thought maybe the standout thing for me in this film actually was I really liked Father Thomas, both as a character and the actor who gave the performance, the main guy. Like, it seemed like this is one of those performances that were, as if it was a much better film almost. Like, he brought the gravitas, is great, just, depth to his eyes and performance. Yeah. He was on the screen plenty, luckily, too, because honestly, he was a big factor for why it just felt like it, whatever did elevate the film, I give it a lot of the credit to him.
Yeah, I think even more credit to him. If the film had wanted to go even further into sort of him as a character, which I think there was room for, I felt very confident that actor would have killed it.
Well, maybe
that's like he would have, was very capable of giving us a big performance.
Yeah, I think that's what worked for me though, is that that was still in there as far as to like how deep of a character he was, because he was like, it was written well too, just as far as his character, someone who's, like we already said, calls out the hypocrisies of the church, has, an interesting take on it, feels like a real priest person, in that sense. So even without, having to take it to the extent of, so like the character arcs and the Exorcist, which I don't think would work in a found footage film as much, or you don't necessarily necessitate or want.
I have thoughts about that.
Okay.
But yes, I'm with you.
Well, that's maybe just more of it towing the line between a found footage film and a not found footage film. But no, I thought, as far as the writing of his character, it was there as far as him being a good character, and then his performance brought that out and more. Yeah,
agreed.
Also, I think just the other performance casting I enjoyed was the main evil nun, Mother Superior.
She's great.
You just had to show her, turn the camera quickly, and she's standing there looking at the camera, and she just has that kind of face where you go, ah!
Yeah, very much so. I was like, she's doing a very interesting thing, like from an acting standpoint. She is really good at being still and relaxed. And those, a lot of the time, that's a challenge for a lot of actors, right? They think that they need to do something, or they need to put something out, like emote something. But she's quite still and quite kind of like blank canvasy for a lot of it. And the effect is that when she actually has a little bit of a like she leaks, so to speak, like a little emotion or a little like flutter of something, it's much more sort of disarming, because we go, ooh. Like, we've been watching this woman be very still and calm, and then suddenly she gets a little flash of like anger. Right. And it's super subtle and it's very upsetting.
But at the same time, it's felt not necessarily surprising, but like the way she carries herself, how you described, like makes it so when then she does have the moments where like at the end where she's like, I am the devil worshiper, whatever is going on, it's just like, oh, this is why she was so disturbing, because this perfectly, how she was the whole movie perfectly leads into this. Like there's no jump, there's no leap to be taken between. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's what we kind of felt, and that's why we were creeped out about her all along.
It's a really, really good performance.
You just have these suspicions just in your chest you get from her. Is cool.
Man, that's a fucking evil character.
I
think that's also great. It also, you know what, the I think that is one of the things that I find horrific in life is the person who puts on all of these fronts and sort of, in a way, hides behind morality, right? Like, this is a good sort of overt example of that, right? Like a nun, we think of a nun as this, pious and caring or whatever. But we also know, like, historically how that doesn't necessarily translate a lot of the time. Not to take anything away from all of our nuns who listen to the show, like, because I'm sure there's lots of you that are wonderful, wonderful human beings. But there is sort of that, talk to my dad for 5 minutes about Catholic school in the 60s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
Like, they're assholes. Like, not everybody, but there are the assholes.
And maybe we should clarify this does take place in 1960. So
right. And so Ireland has also that.
And we haven't even said this is Ireland, Irish filmmaker,
right,
all this.
Right. So Ireland also notorious for that thing of sort of you don't really express emotion.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but there's a what's the word? There's a term for this where it's like you kind of bottle everything inside and you don't act out and you don't put things on, and then eventually it fucking comes out in another way somehow, usually not in a great way, right?
Yeah.
There's that.
I just watched the movie Frozen, not the horror film, but the musical, the kids musical.
I watched it recently too.
That's
again.
what it's about. That's what she goes through.
Yes, exactly. You can't bottle it all up inside. You've got to let it go.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe this was the thread that you were on, but what works so much and is so much fun about, the Mother Superior, the evil nuns thing, is that they're supposed to be like you said, a pious source, but just also it's really scary and disturbing anytime it's supposed to be someone that is a source of like trust, someone that you're supposed to be able just to like, that they're following the Jesus selfless message, someone that you can't, and to think of it as an institution too. That's why it's so fascinating of like, when we think institution, we think stability, something grounded, something I should be able to hopefully turn to for that sense of just, stability.
Well, there's also the really unpleasant aspect of the moral justification where she at a certain point is like, we're fucking taking care of these people, the sacrifice that we have.
They're selling babies or kids in order to keep the women there.
Right, and she's like, that's just a justification that I can get behind, because what else would you have me do?
But so
it's like, ugh, like, be a good person and don't be a piece of shit. I don't know.
Right. Specifically for this film, though, I loved how all that was taken to the extent of they aren't just like evil and corrupt, nuns and nun. They're devil worshippers. They're actually like Catholics turned all the way to Satan worshippers. They have the possessed girl downstairs. They have their inverted they have their skulls and their goat skulls and like what are the altars
and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like to have a nun that it's literally nuns doing all that. It's just cool that they took it that far.
But I really like the sort of commentary of this too, because there's this moment when Father Thomas is calling her out on this shit, and he's like, how the fuck is the bishop gonna feel about this? Like, this is super fucked up. And she basically is like, he's cool with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it sort of speaks to this, it's a little bit the what do you fucking call this in politics? The deep state, right? It's sort of got that vibe of like, we all sit on this pretense of we're, the moral authority or whatever, but little do you know, everybody's in on the fucking shit. Mm-hmm. And it goes all the way to the top. Right. So there's something really kind of deeply scary about that concept of like, the institution that calls itself something good being really corrupted underneath.
Kind of, it also reminds me when you're talking about it, kind of another parallel to the Paranormal Activities, where it is like, had this film gone on to birth 5 sequels or whatever, like that's the jumping off point, where the Paranormal Activities, you're always getting a sense of, oh, this thing is bigger than we expected. This organization every time.
But I think that's, that is a reality within the irony, or the hypocrisy rather, of a lot of these big institutions, right? Like Catholic priests do awful things. Like they're humans too.
Not being able to trust institutions again is like been a big thing for our lifetimes, and continues to be, just as far as the theme explored.
Yeah, and the power of that, and the power to cover up the bad things that have gone on systemically within the institution, right? And how fucked up that all is.
I almost think more and more like, just sorry for the tangent, but like, that it's disturbing too, in the sense, not just how we think of it as the, like it's deliberate, but like when you look at the talking heads on mainstream media, that they're just repeating whatever like this not, accurate thing is, or not, I should say not, full pictured, perspective is on things. So like, I don't know where I was going with that. But
I think it's just that
that's disturbing too.
It permeates the outlook in so many different ways that people have ultimately, right? Like it kind of seeps into our, like, all around us. People will justify things inappropriately because these systemic issues have gone on for so long, it becomes the norm. And you go, ugh, when people call it out, they're like, yeah, but, and it's like, dude, there's no yeah, but. Like, we're talking about women being basically imprisoned into slave labor.
Right.
For what? Because some asshole raped them?
It's interesting.
Or whatever the thing is, because they happen to genetically have a mental disorder.
Yeah.
Like, get the fuck out of here. Right. And I think that, to the credit of the director, who's a woman, so that's like, she's keen in on this from her perspective, and rightly so. Like, this is shit that we should be talking about. Mm-hmm. That's again why also we like horror. A big part of why I like horror in particular is having the ability to take these things that are fun and crazy and over the top as the framework to talk about systemic social issues, historical or not. Like, you don't think you watch this movie and be like, yeah, 1960 was really fucked up, but we're cool now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, shit's still going on to some degree, in some form.
It's fascinating too. It takes sort of a embodiment, like sort of when something that's really bad that comes from all this, like, let's say, the corruption of the Catholic Church, and the pedophilia and all those the instances, and even what this movie's about, like, it takes sort of something that's a worst, like the absolute worst embodiment of all that's wrong, to really get people to not just go, oh, whatever. Corruption and exploitation in the film industry took a Harvey Weinstein. It wasn't enough until, like, we really get this bomb drop. Yeah,
it has to go close to the top of the food chain for people to start caring, which is fucking nuts.
Right.
But, in a way,
it makes sense, though.
Exactly. That was where I was going. It does make sense, right?
Well, it makes sense to the extent that people, to supersede, to make a world where to call out those things requires building, and to act on it requires, to an extent, building a new world, building a new outlook, building a new system. And the key word there is new, which is scary and deep down to people.
Totally. Yeah, status quo. We live in a world of people trying to maintain the status quo, right? And this movie is a nice example of, like, those times in history where we kind of had tipping points where we go, yeah, enough with this bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to stop.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, it'd be interesting to see sort of the history of these Magdalene laundries and, how they... obviously, they stopped being a thing at some point, right?
The filmmaker, she did all her research on it, too, I know. That's what she had been into.
So, this is potentially the reason she picked this year may have been that this was like the last bastion of that era. We could look that up, but we're not going to.
Or we didn't. Any other specifics in this film?
Yeah, I like, there's a few moments that I really think were fun. Most of them involve once we meet Catherine, who is the girl who's being held captive, right? So, and story-wise, I think this is an interesting and pretty fucked up and fun thing. That, like, we've established that what this place is and that these women are sort of just labor and whatever, and that's shitty. But then there's, like, the next level down, figuratively and literally, of women who are who they deemed dangerous or dangerous to themselves and can't be in the sort of upper level of social, like they can't be in a room with other people. And so they're effectively just tossed down into the dungeon. And this woman, Catherine, whatever, she's quite young, right?
I think she's supposed to be 16.
16, okay. They decide, hey, we got to go check on her and, whatever. And she's literally chained to the wall. And the Father Thomas is like, this is unacceptable.
Right. Like, oh, yep, here she is, just normal, chimed up to the wall.
Right. And the Mother Superior is like, well, we have our reasons. It's like, fuck you. So
right.
Thomas is like, unfucking shackle her and get her out of here and bathe her and whatever. And there's a very cool moment when they do that, and Mother Superior's in the hallway kind of being like, we'll see what happens. And they do, Catherine, as they're about to hit the threshold of the cell, essentially, that she's in, her eyes kind of roll back into her head and just go white.
Oh, yeah.
And then flip back down, and she attacks one of the nuns. And it's this very eerie, very, quick but effective moment of like, oh shit, we're fucking in trouble. And then it pays off. And then the fucking Mother Superior, of course, is like, told you so.
Yeah.
Assholes.
That was a good moment.
That whole section, I actually liked a lot of it before it kind of fell into the cliche stuff. I was really kind of on board with the vibe of it, the setting of it, the eeriness, all of that stuff was cool. In particular, later when she is back chained up and in the bed, and the nun, is it the nun that she attacked? Maybe this happened. Yeah, I think it's the nun she attacked. Maybe it's a different one. Like, suddenly fucking the power of Satan, comes out of the girl, and the nun turns, twisted and upside down.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's super fucking disturbing.
And that was, really good use of the found footage to just sort of give you just the glimpse of it in a way you bought.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Those were my big ones.
Yeah. No music playing made it really work. Those moments.
Sorry, I was going to say
that first moment when we find her chained up, when they lead her there, that was a good development as far as just you're reaching a new area of this place we've been in.
Oh, she's pregnant as well.
Right.
She's a 16-year-old who's pregnant, and you're thinking that's why they put her down here. How fucked up.
Right. But just and I mean, that was, fun as far as a thing that's, okay, it gets you, okay, stuff is happening, stuff's changing in this film, we're getting developments. But the reason they were going down there, remember, was because this was another cool development, was when all the Mary statues started tearing blood.
I actually, as I was talking about the Catherine stuff, I was like, oh, that's why they're down there. And so that's very cool.
They connect the blood to her blood type.
Right, because I'm not sure we said this specifically, did we? The miracle that they've been sent to investigate.
Yeah, we said it in the summary.
Oh, we did. Okay, good. Is the Mary's bleeding from her eyes.
And so
right?
that was a really fun moment too, when you have Thomas, the doubting Thomas, all of a sudden be confronted with just all of them just start bleeding from the eyes, tearing, I guess.
And then is that before, I guess do we meet Catherine before the statues all start kind of exploding or toppling over?
That comes after, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
like that's the next development.
That's the
after
next
we've
big
met
thing, yeah.
Catherine,
cool.
yeah.
Right, because then they chase some ghost or something down into the little Satan den.
Yeah. And I thought just that connective thread from like collecting the blood samples to then discovering the girl, like that was cool. That felt like that was a moment in movie where it's like, okay, we're actually progressing, like and plotting here. That was a really cool idea. Oh, look up the blood type,
right?
Like
clues,
like and like actually connect it to, I don't know, like that worked with the character. He's someone who's going to be investigative, very practical about it. There's a trickster at play,
right, yeah. I do, that middle section of the movie kind of, it's cooking.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think right before all that, too, there was stuff working for me there, and that kind of fun, like, it was this, I don't know if I want to say classic, this sounds a little complimentary, but it was working as far as the jump scare stuff of, we have Father John, like, alone in the room at night, and we hear, like, knocking, like, all of a sudden at his door, and we hear the children, and then it's just a sort of fun and games of, leading to what actually was kind of a fun jump scare of one of the kids, like a ghost kid jumping out from behind the curtains, like, but just,
yes, I agree with the idea.
But then there were moments, as soon as that scene like kicked in, where it's like there's the knock on the door, and it just felt effectively eerie, and just using the setting, the light looking into darkness in a way that was most effective, I want to say, for as far as in the film, as far as that sort of just eerie horror.
Agreed.
And then the caves are always cool.
Yeah, that stuff's eerie and fun. I love a basement.
Yeah.
I fucking love a basement.
And you know what we love too?
A danky stone basement.
Is, what was it? Was it not Deep Red? But the Beyond. We also love a basement that then leads to a deeper cave or basement, which is what this was.
So good. Yeah, man, like little tunnels or like crawl spaces really get me.
Yeah.
Because I'm, claustrophobic sort of there's like a threshold for me. It's like, I could be in a small room. I don't give a shit. But when you start to have to squeeze through something, that's when I start to like, no thanks. Like, I'm not cool with this.
Or like the little pits of dirty water in the with bones. You don't know which way you already came from.
That's not cool for me.
And it was fun once we were in the caves. Like, I did love the nuns with like their eyes whited out, and it's just kind of like the end of the paranormal the ending moments of the Paranormal Activity sequels were always the best parts. Like it's just that fun of getting to see the glimpse of this whole other,
I love
what's
that
actually
there
been going
is
on.
This sort of ceremonial Satan stuff going on. Like I'm glad we got to that.
Yeah.
The other thing do you have many more?
That's it for me.
Okay, so I'll use this to transition us, but like. There is an aspect of the pregnancy and the birth, so there's this aspect of she's a virgin. Catherine's a virgin. The doctor comes in, he checks her and says, she's intact.
Yeah.
Right? So she has not had sex, and yet she's pregnant. So maybe that's the miracle, right? Thomas starts going, holy shit, like immaculate conception type stuff, right? I immediately started thinking, well, shit, dude, that's a Satan baby. And like, we're going to get that payoff, right? And we get all the way down. The baby's been taken out of her, right? Like, and that's a really distressing scene, but very well done because the camera just sits on her face as they are literally like extracting the baby from her, which is horrifying. But good performance by the actress, very effective filmmaking in that moment. And then once the baby is out, it becomes sort of Thomas's, quest to save that baby, to get the baby. all of that leading to this sort of Satan ceremony, and there's like a red bit, what would you call that, little bundle of blanket
yeah,
for the baby to be in, and he gets to it and it's empty and all of that. All the way up to there, I'm like on board. I'm like, we're going to see a goat baby. It's going to be Satan's baby. It's going to be something fucking awesome. Payoff galore. Let's go to things that did not work.
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
There's no baby. There's no reveal. There's no nothing. And that really bummed me out.
yeah. The film was definitely. It wouldn't have been pushing anything more ridiculous
No.
had we had some sort of weird goat baby.
It could have been any number of things, right? And even the most just slim glimmer of that thing would have been enough for
I guess
me.
the horror was that it was missing or something. That they had already sold it or done something with it, taken it to the. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I'm just thinking what the
I
intent
agree.
was,
We
yeah.
don't get there enough in that moment. The movie, and how does the movie end? What's the last sort of thing? Oh, John gets attacked by the Mother Superior, and she's all
Got the white eyes.
wide-eyed and whatever, and that's it.
White eyes.
And I'm like, that's not enough for me. Actually, I needed
And
one
we
more
already
little
saw
thing.
that at the beginning of the movie too.
Yeah, what the? Why do that?
That's already.
I don't like that cold open
Sorry,
of
yeah.
a point that comes later. Like, it can be done well, and it has been
Right.
done well, but this is not the movie for that.
So now that we
It's found
are
footage.
now that we are officially in what did not work, that's exactly how I started off our what worked section.
Right.
Was describing how and why that opening cold open did not work. It's like so just like, okay, well, whatever, leading to spooky ghost nun thing that we get a glimpse of, big music build leading up to it, and then now that we're in the right section, just the music throughout, it was just like so telling. Like,
I mean, really, there was a moment, like, I think it's when they get into the tunnels or whatever, and music really swells in, and I was like, well, obviously we're not in a found footage movie anymore.
yeah,
What the
what's
fuck?
the point? Like,
I don't get it.
why did you do that? And it
Do you really think that moment is going to be less scary without music?
well, it's like
Wait, did I say that right?
I don't know. The tagline
It doesn't need music to be scary, is my point.
The tagline was to this film, "This is not found footage. It has been suppressed by the Catholic Church for the last 58 years. Like, the Catholic Church has known about it. Like, this is just footage that they've had, kind of thing.
Okay. And somebody stole it?
Yeah, who knows? The point is, if that's true, at what point, why and how, and did they add music to it? Was the church like, you know what?
Some guy was like, he snuck into the Vatican, he found these fucking reels, and he's like, I'm a budding filmmaker. I'm going to make something great out of this.
Yeah.
Let me hire a composer. Let me hire, like an editor. Let's get it together.
There's again of the word that utterly kills the verisimilitude.
Thank you.
Of the film.
I'm glad you brought it back around, because now I really know what it
Yeah,
means.
exactly. And like it was hard because once we got past that cold open, there was the part of me that was like really hoping, expecting that it could be more like be sort of cerebral, well done horror, because again the atmosphere was promising, the main performance was, but then I just kept going back to that cold open, being like, oh nope, this is unfortunately not that movie. And then as soon as we get those ghost jump scares happening, and so I said like how the sound quality was so cool of their dialogue a lot of the times.
Are you going to say the thing that I think?
I don't know, but there's also, for every time there was cool, it sounded like of the era sound quality, like the actual quality of it, there was just like sounded chintzy, modern, like canned recordings of the kids laughing in the halls.
Exactly. I fucking hated that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm listening to a studio like mock-up of kids. Like, this sounds like a sound technician had a few kids in the booth, had them make noises or whatever, and then amped up the reverb, put in a little bit of a fucking like weird echo delay thing, and like it's processed. It's like a processed sound thing, and we're supposed to believe that that's what Father John is hearing out in the hallway. It stood out
like a sore thumb.
It was crazy how fucking off that was.
Yeah.
I was like, why would you not try to make it sound like it's in the other room, or in like that it's, I think they were trying to go for that it's supernaturally sort of disembodied, but it did not fucking work.
No.
It was super distracting.
It was like,
it bummed me out.
And I was saying how I was pretty into that scene, but then it just had this whole other side to it that was just so unnecessarily overbearing, and then just that itself was overbearing, and I just was not into it.
If it had been very, very raw sound, like empty sort of room sound, holy shit, I would have been like really into it, because that's eerie in and of itself.
There's a way you could do the same thing too with just have it sound correct. I don't know how else to put it.
Well, so there's also the aspect that scene has there's a few, I think most of actually my biggest problems are the ghost things. Like they're all related to the ghost stuff. For starters, just in general, I think it's always a big mistake to double up on your sort of, what would you call this? Like just the bad guys, I guess.
Right. Why are there ghosts?
Yeah. Like I get it. Right? These are the ghosts of children that have been killed there or whatever.
But also, it's an exorcism possession thing.
Exactly.
Like,
it's what's the guy, the Save the Cat guy's name?
Blake Snyder. I hate that you always reference him, but it is helpful.
But he uses this terminology. He calls this shit double mumbo jumbo, which it is. It's you're doubling up on the sort of thematic things that like. Yeah, they're kind of related, but like they're confusing the fucking point.
In order for that to work, though, you have to make that's what's it's about.
Right.
You know, like Nazi zombies, or, you know, there's better examples, you know.
And are they somehow getting to a point in the story where they're helping the fact that these kids are trapped there and haunting the place? And the answer is no, because we go toward the dead or the Satan baby thing, and so we completely lose the thread of the ghost. Like, who gives a shit?
It feels like are
the ghosts helping them along somehow? Not really.
It's like, well, how, if she's possessed, how do we have more jump scares throughout, kind of thing, you know? Or how do we make it scarier?
Also,
I don't know.
Then you're doing Satan.
Yeah.
Do Satan. Do more Satan. Like, have fucking demons. Don't have ghosts.
Yeah.
Have them be demons. Have them be Satan's little demons who are like tricksters in themselves, and then you carry that thread through.
Poltergeist, whatever.
Have them be the thing that are fucking with John, and he can interpret that how he wants, and then Thomas can be like, I've seen this before, or not, or like, oh, you're just whatever. But like, it doesn't. It's too ends of the spectrum. It doesn't.
During it, I just kind of totally tuned out when it was like, okay, and there's ghosts too.
Right.
Like, I'm just like, okay.
Also, I've said this before. I fucking hate that ghost design. The white makeup with dark eyes. It like you've got like powder in your hair. It
looked so chintzy in this, especially.
So fucking lame.
Yeah.
Like, just stop it.
Yeah.
Please stop doing that thing. Ghosts don't have white faces. Or maybe they do, but whatever. Like, do a better job. I hate that. It just doesn't feel right. It's certainly not fucking scary to me. It just looks like a kid who fell in some fucking flour.
I would say you are an authority on what ghosts look like, Tim, because
I did see one.
If we remember, but in episode 18 on Monty, the blacksmith and the devil at 3 minutes 5 seconds, episode 18, Tim talks about his ghost sighting, and he did not describe it. You did not describe it as, Tim, they were covered in white and had black eyeshadow.
No. No, I didn't. Yeah, it's like, just make them. You know what I think in my experience, the best way I could say to describe it is that it had a tone to it, like a color tone that was sort of pinkish, grayish, whatever. So sure, but it was sort of see-through-ish. right? It was opaque. No, what's the...
Yeah, that's right. Like opaque. Opaque is if it's not see-through.
Right. What's the...
So it had a lower opacity than normal.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like there were certain sections of it that were clearer, and then there are certain sections that were kind of translucent.
Yeah. My favorite are in movies.
And it was freaky.
I love it when ghosts are like that kind of... It's like a person just standing there, kind of like the Wailing or something,
or,
you know?
Or
it's just questionable.
Yeah. I like that a lot too. Yeah, where you're like, is that a person or what are we looking at?
I'm also a fan of the Jew on Grudge movies where it's like the white ghost, but I think in a way that for me works, is exciting, is like it's, as we say, it's the closest to the source. It's not like it's just a sort of copy haunted house boothing. Right. It is like there's something authentic about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so, you know.
Yeah, not only was it lame they had ghosts, the ghosts themselves were lame. That's what we're getting at.
Just somebody along the line said we need more jump scares. And I think that...
How do we do it? Well, it's old. What about ghosts?
Yeah.
Like, what?
It just, that's a bummer.
Make the movie that it should be.
Right. What else?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, it was just like these big overarching things killed the movie for me. I mean, we already talked about like what worked. There was a lot, like the specifics were working.
Yeah, I think I definitely had the thought, like I said at the beginning, the exorcism cliches just started to kind of like
turn into being pretty derivative and
I was
familiar.
Like, well, if you're gonna do that stuff, it's like, I get it. There's so much material that's come before that has done those things. Like, why are we still doing them the same way?
Well, it's not, because it's found footage.
Well, but I mean the literal things that are happening. The cross is turning upside down, the like levitating over the bed, like all those things. Even the bending of the nun's body, as effective as that was, every bit of that, I was just like, yeah, I mean, I saw this all. Yeah. In like 20 other movies that came before this.
It's like it has to be.
So I guess I'm posing sort of the question of like, if you're going to do this type, like, what do you do as the filmmaker to not be derivative? To like, you can take those elements, but you got to give it something of your own.
I think you have to, I mean, what we already said, have it be just of that like quality where it feels like actual found footage film, you know, don't have the music kind of like Blair Witch style. And then, you know, kind of like the best of like Robert Eggers, you know, and other just sort of more, I don't know what I like, the good horror films out there is like The Witch, to get us to really buy these fantastical things and like a real, what we're buying into is a real world. You have to like build to them. You have to make them like the moments. Like when she levitates, or that should be a big, huge deal, you know, like make the whole movie about making that moment work. But here it just falls into that just jump scare, you know, whatever kind of movie territory. It just kills the chances for it reaching that. It's doing them in that way of where it does feel like whatever.
I think they missed an opportunity to character-wise a little bit in that, like, so the attempt, I think, was to sort of have Thomas's arc be, you know, he doubts all of this stuff, or even to the fact that it's not even doubt, he's decided it's all bullshit. And that's fine. That's a good starting point. And then we get to a point where suddenly he's like, I'm a believer. And it didn't feel like a appropriate trajectory. It kind of felt like he doubted until he just suddenly was like, okay, now I'm on board. And like that doesn't feel good to me. And I think part of the reason is that you need counterpoint to that. And Father John doesn't quite provide it, because he is consistent the whole way. Father John is sort of like wide-eyed, like miracles can happen. He's
also a non-character. He really is just a cameraman at a certain point.
So I think that something they could have woven into those two characters and the conflict is literal conflict between them that isn't quite there. If John is the believer and Thomas is the non-believer, you have just inherent conflict within that. You can have dialogue and like stuff that speaks to that, and they can get after each other.
That
over
is
it.
there a lit.
It's there a little
yeah.
bit, but it my point is, I think that when things really become fantastical, like up until the levitation, all of this shit, you know, Thomas is still like, it's a fucking thing. It's a trick. It's all fucking shit.
How
Right?
would the chained up girl rig all of the statues connected to nothing to like start bleeding from the eyes at the same time?
Agree.
Like, but
it's enough that like you could go down a fucking, you know,
I just
a
love it
pathway
'cause
of like maybe she's got somebody else is setting her up,
At
and
that point,
it's a fucking conspiracy.
I just
or whatever.
love things like that because at that point it seems more ridiculous that it's not
Right.
quote unquote real, you know?
But
don't know.
here's the moment that I think that they could have taken advantage of. If John is sort of always on board with, oh my God, it's a miracle, oh, it's amazing, like God exists, and like it's lovely. That means that Satan also has to exist, and that point can be made to John, and John can have an opinion about like, oh shit, like the thing that I'm hoping for, that I want to believe in, that I have faith in. There's a, you know, other side to that coin, and the moment she levitates, we are full force in God and Satan exist now, because this is so supernatural. This is beyond.
Right.
It's not. There is no more argument that something supernatural is happening.
No, there's no moment
and so
reacting to that.
Right. And so I think at that moment, John needs to be the one to going, I don't want to believe this anymore because this is scary shit. And if you have that turn, it actually gives Thomas more of an opportunity to go to effectively argue the case for God, which he's been the doubter of the whole time. And so suddenly now we have this almost flipping of dynamic, or at least you start to see the wheels turning so that both of them are moving in a direction opposite to their initial thesis that they hold at the beginning of the movie. And then once that cranks, we can see the trajectory of John just wants to fucking bail out, which is essentially where Thomas has been in his life, where he's like, I reject this. And Thomas is now the one who's saying, no, this is important and we need to further along. And that can get us down. It's not just the idea that, oh, we're going to try and save the baby. It's also a theological like motivation.
Yeah.
And I think none of that really happens. It sort of surfacely happens where we're down in the tunnels and Thomas finally goes, okay, I'm going to pray.
Yeah, Tim, you're right. You're so right. Like it just devolves, and without that moment of and what I think what you started off saying, having a moment that allows for, oh, now John, I am a character, I'm newly afraid of Satan, and they both are going through that.
Yeah.
Then they're reacting up against that, but what we have, it just kind of devolves into
chase.
haunted house mayhem, a chase, and that's when that really felt familiar. Of like, just felt like a Rec 2 clone or whatever, or Rec clone, you know. It's just, yeah, that's when it really did lose me, was that last chunk of just, a chase.
In a way, The Lighthouse is a good counterpoint to this. In the sense of sort of broadly, you have these two characters who have very opposing worldviews. That causes most of the conflict, but it causes also them to sort of go toward each other, even though they wildly don't want to.
Right.
And then there's this overarching thing that this thing that is drawing them in, which in this case is the lighthouse. But like in this movie, you could kind of do a very similar setup where it's like they're both compelled to see the answer, but neither of them want to look at it.
But at the same time, all they have is each other. So that's why they're being drawn to each other. Yeah.
There's also one other element that I think is lacking in that, is the ability to just say, fuck it, I'm out of here. And there's nothing really stopping them other than their own desire to stay and figure it out. I think that without the roadblock of an escape, without the roadblock to escape, it lessens the danger of being there.
Do you mean how, like, once they reach the caves, yeah, sure, they're lost, but there's no sense of like, oh, can they escape? What's stopping them from escaping aside from just time? Or I don't know, like,
Right.
It was just a little
Well, yeah,
foggy.
I mean, that's further along, but I think that it could be done in a few different ways. It could be, I have a moral obligation to follow this, and, you know, that one person is saying we can't just stop.
Are you saying, yeah, because maybe you're getting I didn't even have a sense for why they were going into this cave. Like, what were they?
To chase the baby.
Oh, right.
They hear the baby. But I think even before that, you can set the premise of there's a reason they can't leave the manor. Mm-hmm. There's something that's obstructing them from just saying, you know what? Why are we even doing this?
If something
Fuck it.
about the survival of the baby had to do with that conflict of faith that they're going through.
Right. Somewhere in there, even if the nun is sort of like, we find out, you know, toward the end that one of the reasons they couldn't leave is some bullshit excuse that the nun made up. Something just somewhere along there to make us feel a little more trapped, so that when we get into the tunnels, it's sort of compounding the fact that they're trapped, as opposed to just being.
Or, I mean, it
singularly.
It could just be, you know, still save the baby, but have that moment where it's like they bring up leaving, or one of them convinces the other not to leave.
Right,
Something
yeah,
like
yeah.
so we feel like we are having to stay.
Yeah, it can be literal, it can be sort of philosophical, but it doesn't really happen. Mm-hmm. It's just they're a product of, oh, we chased this thing and now we're lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
So it's thin.
Those are great notes, Tim.
There you go.
Should we have anything else? Speaking of notes for things of note.
No, not really. I don't love the nuns flitting around, like the attacking nuns kind of thing. I'd rather have just seen them not happen upon, but eventually get to the ceremonial type thing, and actually see the nuns.
Oh, you mean the nuns as scary, like creatures?
Yeah, I was like not into that. I wanted them to get to the ceremony and see a bunch of fucking nuns doing a ceremony.
Yeah.
That would have felt more fucked up.
It felt like we got only kind of that, like
Right.
hardly that.
Because that idea and that imagery of if they were in full nun,
Yeah, we kind of
Regalia.
only walked into the aftermath of what
Right.
presumably was that.
I think it would be really, really fucking effective and upsetting to see nuns
Right.
in their nun stuff.
Because when I said that worked for me earlier, yeah, you're right. It was only referring to the insinuation that had happened, that idea. But you know what? Why not just? It would have been cooler just to see it.
I want to see nuns in their habits pouring goat blood all over each other
Yeah,
and fucking being like, fuck yeah, Satan.
yeah, you're right.
Man, that would have been intense. And fun.
Right.
All right.
I know it's funny you said, yeah, I was saying how it worked, how it went there, but it didn't actually go there.
Yeah. I was very excited when we saw the glow of firelight in the tunnel. I was like, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, man, you're
And then it was like, okay, yeah, it's an altar kind of, but not
they
great.
pulled the punches, not what you want to do in a horror film.
Yeah.
All right,
There you
all
go.
right. Things of note.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
I only just had that budget was estimated, according to the Internet Movie Database, at $500,000, and
Whoa.
the cumulative worldwide gross was $516,660. So it did.
Satan! So many sixes!
So excuse me, 3 6s in a row, and it made a profit, just barely. So to
Satan willed it.
So to ourselves and any other filmmakers putting their projects together out there, if these people could gross on this movie, so can we.
Yeah. My thing of note is the director's name, which we have not mentioned yet, is Aislinn Clarke, and Aislinn is very close to my name. It's actually one of the names that people say often when they read my name out loud.
Timothy Aislinn?
Yeah. Which is
Aislinn.
a very Irish name, but my last name is not actually Irish. But I am, like, half-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
Sort of, somewhere in there. So, cool. Aislinn. I looked it up. It means vision or dream in I guess Gaelic, maybe? It's an Irish name, so yeah, it probably is Gaelic, but yeah, it means vision or dream.
Should we add this
How
to our things of
lovely.
note is look up the director's name in meetings?
Yeah, always. James Cameron. Well, Cameron is derived from camera, and he's a filmmaker. Oh my God!
I didn't really have anything else. I didn't have anything else.
I didn't either. I think other than there's sort of an interesting mix of takes on like reviewers. There's a lot of people who are really into it, and there's a lot of people who are like, "This is shit."
I'm sure those ones who are really into it is why it made it into our hat.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the attempt has earned it a lot of credit, and the material, like the attempt to sort of say, hey, a lot of the stuff we talk about in Things That Work, like, hey, this is a thing, and hey, we should be talking about stuff like this, and like, let's make movies about, putting a magnifying glass on how fucked up people are or institutions are or whatever. And I think that carried a lot of weight for a lot of people, and that's great.
All cool in theory and imagery and what it is in essence.
Right.
That's this kind of thing with horror films, Tim. It's like, that's what sort of people tune into with them, even when it's not, objectively good or whatever. It's like, it's still doing what it's doing. It's still offering this up on its platter,
Oh, I have one more thing of note that's more of a broad story thing. It didn't work or not work in any sort of way because it just wasn't a thing. But I really wanted or felt that you could benefit from having more interaction with some of the women, having their point of view in this movie that are not the possessed.
Yeah, they definitely
girl.
felt missing.
They're there and they don't. There's like a couple moments where like one girl starts to say a thing, kind of calling it out, like, we're just here fucking doing this work, and she gets her ass kicked, right? We see that moment, and I kind of was like, I think I think that you could benefit a lot from not just being relegated to these two men.
Yeah, I was thinking it was kind of interesting not having one emerge as a character or being some kind of voice of whatever.
So, yeah, like, it in a weird, ironic way, it almost falls prey to that issue of women not really having any lines or not being the main character.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer.
Yeah.
But so be it.
All right. Should we move on from The Devil's Doorway into what we might be recommending this week?
Yeah.
I'm just going to recommend it. I mean, I only have so much that I'm watching, but one that I enjoyed, I thought it was worth seeing, was 1969, directed by Ken Loach, the English filmmaker. Kes, Kes is what it's called. It's about a British boy learning how to falcon, as a verb, befriends like a little falcon bird.
Yeah.
And it scratched and itched, filled a sort of emotional, intellectual hole in something I've been wanting to understand, which is, when hear the Beatles talking about them growing up and what England was like, and we think of it as gray and depressing and the mean school teachers and repressive society. Like, it was always kind of hard to picture that exactly or relate to it. This film is all about it. Like, you get it now. It's like a slice of life into that. And I liked the overall, I almost want to call it the wraparound story of boy befriending bird.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. You almost need to watch it with subtitles. But sure. Yeah. That's something I can recommend. I've watched recently. Kes.
God, I wish I had one. I wish I had a good one is more like it. I feel like I've turned on a bunch of stuff recently, and it's just been like, okay.
How about something that's just one of your favorite things? You don't have
In
to do
life?
things we're watching. Yeah.
In life?
Yeah.
The Neverending Story.
All right. Hold it up for any of our younger viewers or listeners who haven't
if you
seen
have
it.
not watched The Neverending Story, we need to talk.
It's a great film.
I was talking like last night with some friends, and I borderline feel like I could recite that movie from front to back. And then I thought about it, and I was like, that's probably not true, but that would be a fun thing to be able to do. So I kind of want to like get the script and fucking memorize it. I already know probably 2/3 of it anyway.
And then we'll quiz you.
Yeah. Yep. I'd really like to get... I met a girl who has... The Orin is sort of the amulet that gets given to Atreyu in it.
Right,
And
you have the sticker of it on your guitar.
that's right. I was a sticker of it. I met a girl who has that tattoo on her arm, and I was like, oh my God, we should probably get married.
Yeah.
She didn't want to get married. So, to me. But yeah, The Neverending Story, dude, you gotta watch it.
Do you remember the sequel? I'm trying to...
Oh, God.
All I
Don't
just
watch the
remember is
sequel.
like
It's
the
awful. There's
bird
3,
chicken
actually.
thing.
Well, that shit's all in the book.
Okay.
So the first movie is about the first. It's a little more. Well, I don't think it's halfway, but it's a little under halfway of the book.
Okay.
And then Bastian goes back, and shit's all fucked up, and there's a bunch of tree stuff.
Whatever.
And
I just
chicken
wanted
stuff.
to see if you remember the chicken
it's not
guy.
Good. The second movie is not good.
I want to see it out of morbid
There's a
curiosity.
third one. There's a third movie too.
Never
I
saw
think.
that one.
Jack Black is in the second one. I think he plays the bully. Maybe it's the third one he plays the bully. Anyway,
Well, my shout
young
out
Jack
for
Black.
within the Neverending Story. I'm sure some of our listeners appreciate to hear Snail Rider.
Oh, so good,
Yeah.
so good.
All right. I'm excited to pull from this hat, Tim.
Wait,
What?
is it your turn?
Yeah, you I swear I remember you saying
I got
the
very
devil's
excited.
doorway, right?
I probably did.
Or maybe, I don't know now. Yeah, you're making me wonder it. Okay, who did Bedeviled? Who did Martyrs? Who did Angel Heart? Who did Goosebumps? You did Goosebumps, right?
I don't remember.
Who did Who did Angel Heart?
I don't remember.
Did you pull Angel
I
Heart?
think I pulled Angel Heart.
Okay, let's go with that. Tim
Okay.
pulled Angel Heart. That means I pulled Martyrs. That means you pulled Bedeviled. That means I pulled Devil's Doorway. All right, your turn.
Ooh, more Satan.
Really?
Demon Wind. It's called 1990.
Cool.
Demon Wind. I got some Demon Wind for you. Get it?
Sadly. All right, cool. That's funny. We go from Bedeviled to Devil's Doorway to Demon Wind. This is now after we've also done Demon House,
Yeah.
our other demon film.
Oh, so many demons. So
right.
little time.
Cool. I'm kind of excited to go to 1990. Always
Yeah.
a curiosity year. It feels like that era. I enjoy.
Oh my God,
Seeing
1990.
things
What was
I
I
haven't
doing
seen.
in 1990?
Not watching this film.
5th grade. Wow. Jesus.
Anyway, we hope
Oh God.
you join us next week for Demon Wind from 1990. In the meantime, you could find us at dismemberinghorror.com.
Yep.
And our ask, if you enjoy the show, is to tell a friend. Tell a friend.
Yeah. Get that Satan right out of you.
What?
I don't know.
All right.
Or into you.
Well, I don't know. I already said it. I'm just trying to make sense of what Tim just said, and I'm sorry,
You
I
can't.
You can't. All right. Well, until next time, then, we do mean it. Thank you for listening.
And we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.